Hello and welcome back to the Jazz Inspires YouTube channel. My name is Joe, and today guys we are going to be talking about the absolute legend who is Roy Ayers. Sadly, as many of you will be aware, Roy recently passed away, so obviously rest in peace to Roy Ayers, a jazz funk absolute legend of the game, been around for such a long time, and I've got so much respect for Roy Ayers and all the work that he has done and all the projects and all the albums and all the music that he's been involved with over the years. So, you know, starting off with rest in peace to Roy Ayers. Obviously, Roy's instrument of choice is the vibraphone, and he's an absolute master with it. The way he sounds, so smooth, so cool, so effortless, and really I do think that Roy shows exactly what it's like to be one with an instrument. The relationship that Roy has with the vibraphone, when you see him playing it, it just oozes out. That sort of connection, that bond and that relationship that he has with the vibraphone is wonderful, and on the music it shines through, you know, on the music it really does come through. And this is one of the reasons why I'm a huge fan of Roy Ayers, and if you've clicked on this video I'm sure that you are as well. So today I thought, you know, in memory of Roy, I would look at one of his albums. I mean, everyone is going to be familiar with the track Everybody Loves the Sunshine. I'd say that that is probably one of Roy's top tunes, at least one of probably the most successful, the most recognizable, one of the most beloved tracks of Roy Ayers' catalogue. I mean, when you hear that sort of melody and that sound, you instantly know what it is. I remember as a kid growing up, when I first heard that song, it kind of made me very interested, intrigued to know what is that? What is that sound? I really do like that. So yeah, I have fond memories of that song, and I guess for a lot of people that song may have served as somewhat of an introduction to Roy Ayers and his music. But of course, those of you who know Roy Ayers a little bit better than just the one track, you'll know that he has a vast catalogue dating back many years. Roy has produced and created many different albums, worked with many different musicians. I think he's even worked on soundtracks for movies and things like that. So I thought, yeah, it would only be fitting today to basically do a video where we look back at one of Roy's albums, one that I particularly like. This is probably an album that goes a bit under the radar when it comes to Roy Ayers, and it's an album named Red, Black and Green. And this is just one that I personally really enjoy, so I thought I would share that with you, my thoughts on the album and some of the highlight tracks from this album that I really do enjoy. And I think with it being one of those lesser known albums or lesser talked about albums, it could be interesting for you to maybe discover part of Roy's catalogue. And I think it's a great example of a project that is really great quality, really great listening, but maybe, you know, you might not have picked that one out of his catalogue to specifically check out or listen to, or you might have, and you might just be thinking, you know what, that album is a really good album, so I know where you're coming from. So yeah, Red, Black and Green is the album that we're going to be looking at today. Just general comments on the album is, you know, that sort of signature jazz funk sound from Roy Ayers, you know, probably in somewhat of his prime at that time. It's Roy Ayers and Ubiquity, and yeah, he's just Roy Ayers at his best on the vibraphone. You know, lovely string arrangements, brass, fantastic music overall. And I guess the key comment for this album that I would like to give it is that it's very easy listening. You know, this is one of those albums you could put on a sunny day, you're chilling in the garden with a drink, put this album on and you will not be disappointed. So it's definitely one of those very easy listening, but wrapped up into that, obviously there's a lot of musical technicality, a lot of creative moments, a lot of, you know, improvisation, and you know, just an overall cool, funky sound. So I think you're gonna like this album. Let's talk a bit more in depth about some of the tracks that are highlights for me off of this project. So the first track I want to talk about off this album is named Daydreaming. It probably matches up with the description that I gave earlier about the album being easy listening quite well, right? So yeah, this really does give you that relaxed, smooth feeling where you could just slip into a state of daydreaming while listening to this music. It's really smooth, really relaxed, and really sort of funky and has a lot of soul to it. So yeah, this track is a fantastic, easy listening, smooth ride if you like those kind of numbers. The main melody of the track is really sort of relaxing, laid back and light. Very light-hearted melody to the track. I really enjoyed the guitar chords being strummed in the background as well. And another prominent feature of this track that works so well to bind everything together is the bongo drums that sit quite prominently within the mix of the track. So yeah, those bongos really smooth and just holding that whole vibe together. The combination of Roy Ayers on the vibraphone and the Fender Rhodes, the electric piano, that combination of those two sounds, which I think sit quite closely in that sort of sonic range, right? Like the vibraphone and the electric piano, I feel like they sit within the same range within the music. They combine really well together, and I think that combination, that smooth buttery sound that you get combining those two instruments, it's something that reappears at various points throughout the album. It's part of that sound and identity of this project, and yes, it works really well, and that's obviously something that I think Roy has utilized, you know, in various projects throughout the years, is that smooth combination of the Rhodes and the vibraphone. And then the finishing touch for this track really is those bright string arrangements. Without it, you'd be missing an element of depth, the lusciousness of the strings, and the emotional element and vibe that it sort of contributes to the track is really important. And yeah, I'm really happy that they chose to include those string arrangements in Daydreaming. The next track I want to talk about is the title track, which is named Red, Black and Green. This is one of those tracks where the moment it hits in the drums, that combination with the bass line, it's just gonna have you nodding your head right from the start of the track. So this is one of those, you turn it on and you're instantly, your ears are gonna prick up and you're gonna be like, wow, that's a nice groove right there. So yeah, the title track, Red, Black and Green, really good groove right from the start. And then you've obviously got Roy Ayers alongside his backing singers who are doing those sort of signature vocals where you're not getting those in-depth, intricate lyrics, right, where you have to sort of break it all down in your mind as you're listening to it. It's just like very simple, almost poetic vocals that are very easy to absorb and go really well with that easy to absorb funky vibe that you're getting from the music. And again, this is something that we've seen repeated by Roy Ayers over the years in his music, that almost poetic, simple but effective vocal strategy that he's using within his tracks, which just works so well. And here it's a perfect example of that. In terms of the music, this track has a much bigger sound, and the reason for that is where I mentioned in that last track that they introduced those sort of string arrangements. In this track, you not only get string arrangements, but you also get the horn section coming in there, and the sort of, yeah, the addition of the strings and the horns gives this track a really big feel. But what's amazing is that even though it has a bigger sound, it's not overly clean, it's not overly bright and off-putting, if that makes sense. It still retains that gritty urban feel, even though you're getting these horns and strings added into the composition. And again, that's all Roy Ayers, right? Retaining that sort of urban, gritty, funky, soulful vibe within his music. He's one of the masters of that. And so yeah, this track is, yeah, a really enjoyable listen and a really good sort of blueprint type of track to where Roy Ayers has really nailed that signature sound. If you're enjoying the video so far, consider subscribing to the channel. That way you'll be able to stay up to date with all of my latest uploads. Also, if you like it, why not click the like button? It's going to help the video to spread to more viewers, and it's going to send that sort of signal to YouTube that, you know, people are enjoying it and liking the video. And of course, if you love Roy Ayers, I mean, who doesn't? Drop a comment below. Let me know your favorite Roy Ayers album. Let me know your favorite track off this Red, Black and Green album, or anything you just want to say about Roy, because, you know, as I say, we all miss Roy. We all know that he was an absolute legend. So just share some fond memories of maybe where you've picked up a Roy Ayers album over the years, or maybe you've seen him live. Share your thoughts and your experiences in the comments below, because I would really love to hear about that. The next track I wanted to talk about here is Cocoa Butter. Now, this track has a much more sort of high tempo feel to it. BPM wise, I don't actually know if it's much faster than the other tracks on the album, but definitely with regards to the drum pattern, it feels as if it has that higher tempo and that higher energy to it. So it kind of adds that extra dynamic or that extra flavor that you might be looking for on the album. This track is not necessarily a mind-blowing composition, to be honest with you. It's quite straightforward in terms of the general structure, but what I absolutely love about it, and the reason why I'm sort of highlighting it on this video, is because Roy Ayers really does get the chance to open up, become the lead, and sort of go into his improvisations. There's a lot of freestyling, there's a lot of soloing on the vibraphone from Roy. So I really do feel he got the chance to stretch his legs on this track, and he does such a fantastic job. Again, one of the masters, a masterclass in vibraphone playing, and he just moves across those notes so effortlessly. Everything just sounds right. And yeah, this track, you know, like I say, not the most mind-blowing composition, but definitely I had to highlight it because Roy really does go to town on this one. And also I have to mention that at moments during this track, the bass sounds fantastic. It gets intricate at moments and really does work side by side with Roy's playing. So yeah, the bass playing on this track is also something that I noticed and was really impressed by. So the final track I want to talk about today is Papa Was a Rolling Stone, and this track sounds like something right out of a blaxploitation movie. And you know, that isn't really surprising when it comes to Roy Ayers, as I believe, you know, throughout his musical career he has actually produced and created soundtracks for blaxploitation movies. I think one of the movies he did it for was Coffee with Pam Grier. I could be wrong. If I am, let me know in the comments below. But yes, he's definitely been involved with blaxploitation movie soundtracks in the past, and this track definitely has that sound and vibe, that sort of super cool, or you know, maybe I should say super fly kind of sound to it that I really enjoy, and it's done just so well in this instance. Again, we see on this track that combination I mentioned earlier of the vibraphone with the Fender Rhodes, and it just sounds so lush, so full, and has so much depth to it. And then also add into that more fantastic string arrangements, and there's just more of that sound that you're going to enjoy. I have to say, this is probably one of the top contenders for my personal favorite track on the album. It's just got an infectious melody and such a, yeah, like I say, a lush sound to it. And yeah, this one's really up there for me on this project. So yeah, one of my favorite tracks. So overall, final thoughts on Red, Black and Green is that this is an absolute jazz funk gem. As I mentioned, it's probably one of those albums that goes a little bit under the radar, and therefore it might be a little bit underrated. You know, there's probably going to be people in the comments mentioning other albums within Roy Ayers' catalog that are better and where he had done a better job, or they prefer the tracks he did there. The purpose of this review is not for me to say, look, this is the best album by Roy Ayers. That might not necessarily be the case. It's just one that really does hit the mark when it comes to that smooth, funky sound, and like I keep on saying, really easy listening. You could put this one on in the background on a summer's day in the garden, having a drink, having a barbecue, and it's just going to go perfectly well in that environment. Within this album, you can really see how and why Roy Ayers has influenced so many of the modern music genres, whether it be, you know, modern jazz, neo soul, hip hop, and all those sort of modern genres that you hear. You could hear where Roy Ayers' influence has really impacted those genres in some way, and in this album you can really sort of hear the essence of that. Roy Ayers was a jazz funk pioneer, and when you listen to this album you can sort of come to the conclusion that yes, 100% Roy Ayers' music is still inspirational till today. There's still things going on in the music that will inspire you and get you excited about jazz funk. So if you are a fan of jazz funk, this album is a must listen. If you enjoyed today's video and you want to continue hanging out, I'm going to pop a video up on the screen now for you to click on. Other than that, remember to subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed the video, click that like button, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.